So hello, everyone. My name is Amy Farmer. Thank you for spending some time with me, and hopefully I can provide some information that might be helpful for you during this really, really complex time. I am an LCSW, which is a licensed clinical social worker. I've had the great pleasure of working with children, adults, and families throughout the course of my career, more years than I would like to acknowledge. And obviously this has been a really busy time in the mental health field and an important time that we're all supporting each other during this.
Yeah, super hard. Well, thank you, Amy, for joining me. And one of the things everybody's got a little bit different situations, but then we have this collective thing that's happening. And I think there are probably some good overall skills that people could keep in mind. You know, winter's coming, and although there's been a vaccine announced, we still have a long way to go. And I think it's going to be a long, hard winter in a lot of different ways. And so I think a lot of times if you start to think about coping mechanisms in advance, you can start applying things early and setting yourself up. And I know from my perspective, you know, a regular yoga practice, getting the blood pumping, getting your breathing exercises and all that stuff, having that happen on a regular basis is really great at keeping you physically healthy and also mentally healthy. But I figured you would have some really good techniques or tips as to what are some ways you can approach the quarantine that we're facing as the numbers start to spike.
So I think there's a whole bunch of questions and thoughts in there, all of which might have slightly different ways to address them. I think the quarantine, to start with, does a couple of things. I think it lessens our ability for social interaction. Human beings are social animals, and not having a lot of social interaction of various types and all of the types, work relationships, personal relationships, all of them are truly important. So finding a way to fulfill those needs, as well as the fear that comes with the quarantine. The word quarantine in and of itself causes a great deal of fear. So it means we're not safe and having to deal with that fact. So I think if I start with just quarantine and the word quarantine, it is important to recognize all of the steps that we are each taking to keep ourselves safe in our own unique situations, whatever that may be. We certainly know the recommendations about social distancing, about wearing a mask, washing your hands. So when that anxiety gets high, it's really important to take a breath and go, okay, these are things I've done to protect myself and those that I love, and make sure that we're continuing to do that and applaud ourselves for doing that. We can even add the pieces of, as you said, the yoga, the exercise. All of that is incredibly important for physical and emotional health. What we're eating is making a difference. There has been some young research coming out that talks about vitamin B is really important. Obviously, the vitamin C's in the winter in general are important. So we have a lot of control about what we're putting into our bodies. And it really is very tempting to do the comfort foods, but that is not something that's going to help boost our immune system. So I think first it's recognizing it is a scary situation, but these are all the things I can control, and I'm keeping those within my arena and keeping that focus on them. So I think that's the first part. I think the second half of that quarantine is that being separate from others, and how do we fulfill that need? And it's really interesting because what a lot of us are doing is what we're doing now in Zoom, and it's great to see faces, especially old friends that you don't get to see as often. And that is an important piece. But how the Zoom impacts the relationships is actually more exhausting for the brain. Often with technology, there's a bit of a lag. So your brain to process what someone else is saying is very exhausting. You can't read the nonverbal cues as much because the eyes may be looking at your face and not the camera. And so, are you really paying attention to me? And eye contact is so important for building those relationships. So it is starting to be shown that actually having a phone call is much more reassuring than the Zoom fatigue that we're finding. So look at how you're getting that human contact. It is important to see people, but if it's someone you want to see and talk to a lot, don't be doing it over Zoom. Take a phone call instead. Obviously, those people that are in your bubble in the quarantine, as many hugs as you can get, that's great. A lot of folks have adopted animals. Just the touch of another human being lowers your blood pressure, lessens your fear. So anything that you can cuddle with, But there are other ways to get that as well. Giving yourself a hug, touching something with a soft blanket, anything that's a tactile sensation. Those can fulfill some of those same needs, not in the best way, but it's one of those circumstances where if you can't get what you want, what's the next best thing? How do I replace it to the best of my ability?
I've made a rule for myself that I'm not buying clothes anymore that don't, as soon as I put them on, go, oh, I love you, Robin.
That's a great way to do it. And there's a lot of good blankets and sweaters out there that definitely love you.
Exactly. So absolutely. That's great. So there's the issue of people that are holed up in their house with big families, and then the contrary of people that are by themselves. And so there's a real contrast, because the people that are with the family, they've got that social interaction in the family, but it's a little bit magnified, and
Yes.
There may be some serious issues. And how would you recommend that people that are holed up with a whole family sort of cope with that?
That is almost the opposite end of the extreme, where at first you're like, yes, at least I have, my loved ones with me and we're going to get through this together. And that lasted for a while. But there is a great deal of stress constantly being with other people, especially when that wasn't your typical norm. Most of us went off to work for several hours a day, kiddos went off to school. So that constant demanding of time and attention, also the sensory overload, the constant noise of children in the household, or a TV on, and, the constant different sounds and sights and senses that are being overstimulated, that creates a shortness of mood. So that's a real difficulty. And I think the first step is acknowledging it. Because it's hard to say to someone you love, look, I need some space. Most of us take that as a negative, where in reality, as human beings, as much as we need social interaction, we need some alone time. We need just to process and let our senses relax a little bit. So I think acknowledging it in as soft a way as possible. I love you, and I'm so glad that we're safe here together, but I really just need a little quiet time to quiet my brain. So acknowledging it, and then carving out some of those times. If you have a large family and you're taking care of children who are maybe trying to do remote learning, can you set up a schedule? Can you set up times where one person is taking care of something and this is your alone time? And deciding what are those sacred spaces? Is there a place in your house you can bundle up and go for a walk, go for a drive, anywhere, and just decide this is my sacred space, and people are going to respect it and they understand why I'm doing it. It's not anything about them. It's just how I need to de-escalate. And it's important to know who you are. People who are extroverts aren't struggling with this as much as someone who has an introverted nature. And they need that quiet time to re-energize and regroup. That is much harder for them than someone who's like, yay, it's kind of my constant get together. So know and respect who each other are, but always have that open communication and respect boundaries that need to be set up.
Yeah, I think that's important. Well, as we come into the holiday time, there's lots of conflicting issues. I think about the fact that we were always like, oh, the holidays, oh, we have family time. And now everybody's like, oh, the holidays, oh, family, I can't see my family. And, we always wanted to get out of it, or kind of approached it complaining a little bit. And now all of a sudden we don't have it. And part of that is not a bad thing. It gives you perspective. And I think it helps you appreciate what you have and what's important. But it's, I think, going to be emotionally a real challenge for people for the holidays.
Yeah, I think it really is. I mean, holidays are about tradition, and we all have different traditions, whether it's certain foods, I see certain people, I travel to a certain place, and that's going to be limited immensely. And as you said, I think it does highlight priorities, and celebrating and appreciating loved ones, something that needs to happen on a daily basis, not just at the holiday time. So I think this is a great time to pull out creativity, figure out of your traditions, of your experiences, what are the favorite ones, and how do we really embrace those, and how do we creatively do them? Depending where family are, you can, we've all seen the birthday parties on the lawn over the summer. Yes, it's colder, but it's not an impossibility. To do a drive-by Santa visit, or,
hey, there's no bad weather. There's only bad clothing choices.
Agreed. Absolutely. A great time to, send gifts, send cards, do a Zoom party or holiday. and separate that out. But again, that constant connection through phone calls and just letting people know you're thinking of them, but try to narrow out those couple traditions that are really, really important and finding a way to make sure those happen. A great time to add new traditions as well. So that combination, if there's something novel that you want to do, that, you know, maybe this is the year you do all handmade decorations for a holiday tree. Or you try a new recipe. We have the time. So add one new thing in and build a new positive tradition to go along with the previous ones.
I think cooking together is one of my favorite things to do now, is setting up the laptop in the kitchen and just, you know, putting stuff together and talking. Well, and I think we can really get creative if you almost gamify it in a sense of, okay, this is our tradition. What can we do? How can we, you know, mold this into something that can still keep us safe, but still be rewarding and soothing, and give us some of that the feeling that we're looking for.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that there might be some significant financial stressors for some people this year. And obviously, if you look at the marketing and the advertising, everything I think starts earlier every year. So again, communicating and acknowledging some of those boundaries that might exist and making something fun. Maybe this year, you know, everybody, if you're going to buy a loved one a gift, it has to be under $5 and has to have a handmade card, you know, so acknowledging it and being creative, but that's a real stressor for families. And for those that are in a position, if you can donate to an organization that helps children and families that need, it's a great time to be able to put some kindness out there if you're in a position to be able to do so.
Yeah, it really is. I think that's awesome. The wintertime there's a lot of people that get affected by the winter on a normal year. The lack of light. I don't know if you're where you stand on the light therapy. Is that?
You know, I think there are a lot of different therapies out there, and I always suggest if it's something that affects you significantly, where your mood shift is really extreme, talk to your physician. Different therapies have different recommendations, so I always recommend go that route. So I don't have a strong feeling about light therapy per se, but they certainly have some very inexpensive seasonal affective disorder lamps out there, which have been around for years, absolutely have reviews and let people really kind of adjust to that light change quite a bit. So I think there are those methods. And I think that there are also some of those smaller coping mechanisms we can use on a daily basis with some of the seasonal affective issues. In winter, the natural desire is to hibernate, to sit and do less, cuddle up under the blanket. And that's fine if it's kind of planned time. You know, today, this is what we're going to do. It's my plan, so I'm going to do it. And I'm going to feel successful that I sat around under this cushy blanket that loves me. I'm just going to do movies all day. Yeah. That's a great plan. But same things that make us feel good on any other day. You know, you don't have to just do a true exercise workout. Every half an hour, go walk up and down the stairs, you know, look out the window, do something of that sort. Put a lot of lights on, depending on your body temperature. If you can afford to put the heat up a little higher, wear something that's summery that makes you think a little differently. And I think using our five senses, when we're fearful of something, we stop paying attention to the positives in it. So the summer, it's easy, there's sun, it's warm, but the winter has many beautiful things. So if it's snowing outside, instead of going, oh my gosh, it's snowing, it's so cold, I can't go anywhere, watch the snowflakes.
Yeah.
See what they look like. You know, smell the fresh, cold air. It has a very different scent. Feel the wool sweater. So really just be in the moment. It's when we're fearful of something and we push a moment away that it actually gains so much more power. So using those five senses can really help embrace the winter. But along with the lights, certainly vitamin C, vitamin B, make sure you're putting healthy things into your body as well that we're not naturally getting from the sun and the outdoors, especially vitamin D. New Englanders are known for low vitamin D because we don't get enough sun.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's good to know. Yeah, I'm just going out, like bundling up, and I'm ordering myself some long underwear and some fleece lined pants and all that. And as long as I'm bundled up, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. I can go outside and really enjoy it, and I'm not too cold. So
yep,
you just
absolutely.
have to have the right equipment.
Mm-hmm. And those endorphins are just as powerful in the winter as in the summer, if not more so.
That's so true. That's so true. And what you said about what you put in your body is so important, because mm-hmm. Different foods affect everybody very differently. And I know sugar affects me really powerfully. And so I have to be very, very careful. And the good thing too is I'll have sugar, but then when I feel the effects of it, I'm able to tell myself, okay, that's not your world caving in. That's because you ate a bag of marshmallows.
Yes,
So,
absolutely. It's not a crisis. My body's responding to whatever.
exactly. I can feel it, but it's not,
Yeah. And I can, I think you can say the same for I haven't gone outside for a walk in 2 days. So yeah, I'm feeling fatigued and sluggish. I don't have any natural endorphins in my body. So recognizing what might be some very realistic reasons for how I feel versus making it an emotional crisis where it really may be something much simpler than that we can solve.
And one of the silver linings I think of the pandemic too is because everything's online, we've got virtual classes a couple times a day now. So you can just tune in and they're live classes. So you're tuning into a group. You're not just watching a recording. You have somebody's eyes on you. So you're safe as far as, somebody making sure you're doing everything correctly. You're part of a community and you can just tune in, even there's yoga studios, maybe you have an odd time of day that you're available, like on the West Coast, that have maybe a class at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, when that's the better time for you, where the traditional East Coast studios don't. But you can tune into so many different communities and really find what you need like that. So quickly, at just on your fingertips, on your whatever device you're on. And even though we get device fatigue, and I think it is important, as you said, to take some time away from those devices for sure. But for those of us that are on our own, this is our only, really our only social interaction. So we want to seek out, okay, I don't want to watch a YouTube video that I'm not going to get any feedback from. I want to have a live experience with someone. And so it's nice to be able to
Absolutely.
tune in.
It has made the world smaller in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I'm having a weekly call with my best friend in London now that we used to go months and months and months without talking. And now we've just decided, okay, every week, every Thursday, we don't make it, we probably make it at least 2 to 3 out of the 4 in the month. And so now it's much quicker when we get together, because we used to have to catch up so much. And now that we're able to talk more regularly, and she's taking my yoga classes every once in a while. And
that's great.
There's loads of silver linings, I think. And I think it's good to focus on those and not get it. It's totally, I think it's okay to allow people to complain a little bit and grieve. And, as an employer, I've had multiple staff members who have, kind of been mildly imploding at different times. And they just needed to kind of vent and be like, I don't like this. And I know, I hear you. Okay, so where are we going to go? What are we going to do with that? Where are we going to go from there?
Yeah, and it's important to be able to acknowledge it and vent it out a little bit, but you're right, don't linger in it. That's not productive emotion. It's okay to put it out there, have it validated, but then look at what we can control, look at what the blessings are, and move forward. And I think even you're talking about some of those, virtual classes and connecting to people that are far away. This is a time that if you can take advantage of some of your own self-development. If you've always wanted to, as you said, learn about this, everywhere has virtual field trips that you can go and see the Louvre that, you weren't able to fly and get there, or, learn about a different expertise. There's a lot of folks putting new videos up as well about whether it be self-care or about a certain hobby. It really is a time where we do get to explore who we are and take time for some of those pieces to enhance our own development.
Yeah, I think that's so true. It feels, it's funny to me that it's so different, but at the same time, it's this all these different way of looking at the world and everything we do. And it gives perspective. And I think, like when we've recently had to start wearing masks in the hot room during class, we are always in yoga trying to focus on breath work. And for the regular practitioners that always had an easy time because they practiced all the time, now all of a sudden they're like pulled back and they have to dial everything back and just focus on their breath. And that's a huge gift.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do it if you weren't forced to. There's so many things that you wouldn't do it if you didn't have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, my mom growing up, my mom always used to say, look for the gift in the problem. And there are lots of little gifts. And there are lots of problems, no doubt,
Mm-hmm.
but there are so many little gifts out there and ways and new perspectives. And I think one of the other things that now that we're on the other side of the election, there's a modicum of relief
Yeah.
about that just being decided, regardless of which side you're on. But there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of people not being quite sure what's going to what are we going to have to do and who's in charge and who do I, because a lot of times we want to just tell me what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Tell me what's the best. I don't want to do all the research. You just tell me, you guys have researched it. Tell me what I'm supposed to do to keep myself safe, my community safe, my family safe. And that's been hard to get. So I think now that we're a little bit on the other side of it, it's a little bit better, but there's still a lot of uncertainty and a lot of too much news intake. I know I've dialed back on my news consumption, which has helped quite a bit. And I do still listen to the news, and probably almost every day, maybe every other day, but I keep it to give me the basics, and I don't do a deep dive into it
And that's a really smart thing to do, in terms of our maintaining our emotional health at this point in time. We have to be careful of what we expose ourselves to. So if we find the news difficult or toxic, then that's something you avoid. Social media can be the same. A lot of people go on social media and we start to play a comparison game about other people's lives, so limit that. Watch what type of TV you're watching. If something makes you more emotional, maybe take a break from that and do more comedies. Yeah. So be aware of what you're exposing it to yourself to, because that's going to impact your overall mood and emotional health. That's a huge indicator. And I think there's also, I absolutely agree that it's been a really complicated time with the election, and regardless of what one was hoping outcomes were, there was significant divisiveness. There still is a lot of divisiveness, uncertainty about a number of things, certainly the health and the public health issues and other issues. So I think it's important to know that you make the best decision you can in the moment. Reach out to folks in your life that you respect their opinion because of their expertise, their background, previous behavior you've seen. Ask their opinion if you want their opinion, and then know you're going to do the best you can. And we cannot look back and judge a previous self and a previous decision, because we're no longer that person. We have new information. So give yourself that piece of grace. And I think that if you do run into some of that divisiveness connected to the election, it's just a great time to put extra kindness out there, regardless of anyone's belief system. It's more important that we come together. And I think it's Crosby, Stills and Nash that has the song, a smile is a smile in any language, and I know we can't always see it with the masks, but you can smize with your eyes, or,
I have one of those clear masks.
Oh,
I have the clear one. I love it.
Perfect.
I love
and some of us have enough wrinkles that they can tell when you're smiling. But it is the time. And when we do an act of kindness or we say something kind, there's a lot of research about how that affects our own brain and how that makes us feel. Never mind the pay it forward sort of thought process, but it really does lift our own mood, and there's brain research behind that.
I think in the realm of understanding too, and being compassionate, sort of empathetic, is recognizing everybody's going through it. So you may see behaviors in people that are a little unexpected. Mm-hmm. And I've personally been just trying to not react. And of course, we're all a little bit more on edge. So it's very easy to react quickly and have a reaction to something, that an emotional reaction or anger or rage. Whereas sometimes it's good to take that moment and say, I don't know what they're going through. Yep. I don't know if they have a parent that is sick and they can't be with them, or they have kids and they can't decide school or no school, and that there's just so many stressors. Yep. I've had, in the beginning of the pandemic, I had clients that were kind of acting out about all sorts of things that I was like, this is very strange. And I realized it was just everybody dealing with all the changes and the routine being completely blown up. Yeah. So I think just having a little bit of extra patience is helpful. It's just recognizing that, what you're seeing is not necessarily that person on a normal day. Yeah. You just don't know what they're dealing with, the the conflicts and the contradictions and the hard decisions that they're having to make in their life. A lot of us are having to do that. And so, so it's just always good to take a moment and step back and take a breath, you know, and see, okay, maybe that's not their normal response, but they might have something else going on.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
So, yeah, cool. Well, I covered all the points I think that
Awesome.
that I wanted to cover. Yeah, good. A long time. So yeah, I covered all. This is awesome. Thank you. I'm so excited.
This was so fun. I will chat with you anytime.
I know, this is great. We could all come up with more questions. And we'll
Okay.